Greetings and salutations, friends, and welcome back to more Total War Warhammer. Finally, we're going to get started with the Empire campaign with a brand new computer, a nice old i7 with a GTX 1080 because of bloody course. So, finally, let's get started, shall we? As usual, Karl Franz, naturally, and on very hard. Balthasar. I'll get you eventually, but for the moment you're going to have to wait, you creepy little fuck you.
Drums of war never cease, for the old world lies in great peril. A strong leader is needed to unite the Empire, the greatest of mankind's nations. As gods battle for the world's fate, I make my own humble contribution in the employ of the newly anointed Emperor. Even now, we make haste to the Emperor's ancestral capital. For the demented Rachnik Spiderclaw leads an attack on Altdorf's walls. My charge is Karl Franz, the true wielder of Ghal Maraz. But as he fights to secure his status as Emperor, will his reign strengthen the nation, or lead it to ruin? The greenskin threat is...
Yes. I know, goblins and all that nonsense. God damn you and your pessimism, you old broom molester. With Grimgor Ironhide, it's all like, the world is at your feet, Grimgor. Wow! With Karl Franz, it's just like, try not to fuck up everything. Just... son of a bitch. Right. As far as everything else goes, it's pretty much like the greenskin campaign, though. Just murder these guys. God, that 1080 really does help, doesn't it? I was getting like 10 frames per second previously, and now I'm sitting at a fairly average 100 frames per second, so yeah, it's a slight improvement. Alright, we are then. Well, I've fought this battle enough times to know what I'm supposed to be doing here, so line up on the hill. Then we will touch them in a naughty manner to frustrate them a little bit and cause them to come closer to our own positions. Alright, you are then. Right, okay. Handgunners. Handgunners are a little bit interesting, because you need to be careful and make sure they are in a position where they can actually fire rather than just dunk most of their shots right into the ground in front of them. So you need to give them a little bit of a elevation advantage, if at all possible. You could spread out there, and Francie Boy can go up the middle. Now, Francie Boy's not a... what should I call it? He's not an anti-hero hero. You know, he's not an anti-hero. You can't do with him what you can do with Grimgor and just throw him at an enemy hero and watch him just completely stomp all over him and come out the other side with little to no damage, really. That doesn't work for old Franz. Franz will get the shit kicked out of him fairly quickly and fairly easily if you try that, so I wouldn't try it. Especially as... at least as far as I'm concerned, I consider Franz early on to be far more of a supporting hero. He has some truly amazing support abilities, which I usually put, what, the first 8 or so levels of his points into? Especially he has one particularly awesome ability by the name of Headhunter, which is probably my favorite, because it gives a fair bit of free experience to your units. And State Troops are not amazing units. They're decent, but there's nothing particularly amazing with them, so you really need that veterancy to get going with them. Okay, that's that. You go over there. They've cooled down the projectile trails a lot now, also, by the way, which makes them bearable. I mean, they're not as ridiculous as they used to be. You remember some of the earlier screenshots, or well, screenshots, the early gameplay of the projectile trails? They were just... good God. Thick as goddamn jet contrails. Bloody ridiculous. So you go back there, and I think you can afford one more volley. Like, this is fine, because this is enough of a contrail that you can see where the shots are going, without it being this massive cancerous trail of white, you know? There we are. Now you fall back over there, and you... I wish they had reload animations so I could tell just how far they were on their reload. Right, you run away now. And the Reiksguard will deal with the enemy's archers. Right, you just throw yourselves into the enemy there. You'll try and deal with those for a moment. And the range units will start heading around the flanks. The Reiksguard shouldn't have much of a problem killing these long before the swordsmen prove to be too much of a problem, so I'm just going to throw them into the rear of the spearmen. Come on. Yep, there you are. Much better. And you just spread out there. Let's see. The crossbowmen should be about dealt with. They're routing, right? Yes, they are. Lovely. Okay, you just start shooting them right in the rear. And we can put a volley or two into these guys, I'm thinking. And the halberdiers are kind of getting the shit kicked out of them, mostly because of the enemy hero. Enemy heroes tend to be rather dangerous, don't they? Surprisingly enough. Actually, you shoot at those instead, because there's a little bit of a fatter target there. Okay. You just back off a bit then. And I'll throw the Reiksguard right into their soft, squishy rear party. I can actually throw the spearmen into them as well, because they're kinda done down there. There we are, that's that dealt with. Franz is just about done with the spearmen, so I'll throw him in against the enemy hero. Franz may not win outright against enemy heroes, but he will do a fair bit of damage, so as long as you've knocked off most of their health, he will do the job. You just can't... you can't Grimgore him and just throw him right in there without any care in the world, because that will get him dead. Oh, you're running away already, are you? That was quick. Not that I mind, of course. In fact, that is lovely. So how about you just line up there and have a few shots into them, yeah? You don't really... nope, you don't want to follow them, trust me. It's It's gonna be rather bad for your health. 39 left of those. You go hunt down the crossbowmen, and as for everyone else, you just murder whatever you can murder, yeah? There you go. And Franz apparently hunted down the enemy hero as well. Very good, Karl, very good. You have proven yourself worthy of, at the very least, not utter and complete scorn this day, which is very, very wonderful indeed. Considering that Karl Franz managed to send the Empire, one of the most stable nations in the Warhammer world, into open civil unrest, with even a secessionist movement, which... Okay, here's the thing. A secession movement within the Empire is beyond fucking unlikely. The Empire has been a unified nation, or more correctly, a unified gathering of various states for so long that a secessionist movement within Reikland just does not make any sort of sense whatsoever. Really doesn't. Hello. Melee attack. We do like melee attack. And I think we've got plenty of stuff to capture Grunberg with, but before we do that, let us recruit ourselves a lord. Which one of you can I get? Disgusting Scar, it's not bad. Easily Distracted is terrible. Easily Deceived is worse, so okay. Eben Olden, you get to be my next guy then. Eben Oldness is somewhat of a terrible name. Sigh. I saw this name in a previous playthrough and I like it, so Warhammer. Yep, 2 M's. There you go, much better. Mac Warhammer. It's a very striking name, you can't say anything else, so that'll be good. Plus, Ugly Mac Uglyson is a little bit mean in my opinion, even though he is disfigured. Right, Grunenberg, let's go deal with that. Before, however, a Route Marcher, wonderful, and this is the one I was talking about, Headhunter, plus 2 experience for all recruits in the Lord's Army. Incredibly useful, gathered up with a lot of the other bonuses to recruitment that the Empire get. It's so good. And of course, a leader for now, because, you know, you save money, and you're going to be using quite a lot of money as the Empire. Well, that's pretty self-explanatory then. Occupy, of course.
Your burgeoning realm grows, Your Eminence.
Doesn't it just? There. Battle of Bloodpine Woods. Ah, this actually activated this time. I've had this not pop a couple times for reasons that are entirely beyond me, but it did pop this time, which is good. Right, I wanna actually break this, and I'm gonna get just 3 swordsmen here, because I prefer to have my melee barracks in Grunberg rather than Altdorf, because Altdorf needs to have so many buildings, like... It has to have the Altdorf College of Magic, for lore reasons. The Colleges of Magic has to be in Altdorf. The same with the Cathedral Sigma. Both of these buildings must be in Altdorf, you know, it's... They have to be. So in addition, you want the stables, the menageries, and the armory, which pretty much fills up the entire city, along with the port, which is a really, really good building, because it does give a fair bit of money, tons of growth, all kinds of cool shit. It's something that you can consider, you know, breaking down later in the game, but considering it also gives you research, I prefer to keep it for the immediate time being anyways. And you get to be Treasurer, Warhammer Mac Warhammer. Which is a lovely name, isn't it? Right, there are the orcs, right on time. Before we do anything with that, we're gonna try to deal with the actual secessionist, methinks. And it's slightly shorter to walk through here, which is just fine. Helmgar is, at the moment, undefended, but it tends to not remain undefended, I'm afraid. Okay, so... we are building the... where is it? Where is it? There it is. Lovely. And we're not going to destroy that yet, because I want another turn of recruitment, so... 3 more swordsmen. As usually, these guys pop over to Helmgart, which means they have a lot of stuff, so let's see what they do. Maybe they attack the orcs, maybe they lose. No, the orcs decide to fuck off, as they so often do. Right. Alternatively, you can go straight for Eilhart, but meh, I usually prefer just going for this, as what have we got? They've got 9 units, and it's got a garrison of another 10, 11, 12, 13, 14 units. Yeah. It's pretty much 1-to-1, which I feel nice and comfortable with. Ah, orkies. I feel less comfortable about the orkies. They can be annoying. Basically, they can't go for Altdorf, but they can go for Helmgard and for Grunburg, and since they somehow have access to the Underway, in an area where the Underway was never built, they can pop back and forth in this forest here very easily, which is downright frustrating. So, let's get to action once more. Alrighty we are then, and my reinforcements appear behind me. Wonderful. I do ever so much hate it when they appear behind the enemy for some strange reason, but they're not actually deployed behind the enemy, you know? If they actually were deployed behind the enemy, then fine, but usually they aren't, because deploying your forces behind the enemy is a very large risk, with a potentially very large reward. True, but I am generally not a massive fan of risks of that scale. You can be up there, yes. Now, I should have... I think they outnumber me slightly when it comes to melee units, so I'll have these as reserves for the moment. Walk, please. I don't want you to get overly exhausted. There's not a whole lot of reason for you to be running at the moment either. So they've got, I believe, 1 hero, which means I'll have a bit of extra oomph in Warhammer Warhammer, as heroes are, as we have noticed on several occasions, rather powerful units. And I'll be able to do some good old-fashioned flanking charges with the Reikland. Okie dokie. I believe I might be able to pop up there, but I might not. Let's deploy these guys first and foremost. I'm thinking I might be able to get within range to annoy them into charging me, which is preferable. Okay, you target the spearmen and see if you can't annoy them into being a little bit offensive. Spearmen. Ah, state troops. See, state troops are an interesting little unit, both for lore reasons and for gameplay reasons, which I'll get into, well, now, while we wait for shit to kick off. Now, in gameplay terms, and, are you gonna... Hey, you're just gonna sit there for some reason. Okay, that's unusual. Usually... Oh, now the projectile trails are nice, big, fat, and cancerous again for some reason. Why? See, that's too much, so go away. And they looked so good for a moment. Oh, well. Right, so, state troops, as an in-game unit, they're fairly weak, everything considered. In fact, they're really weak. Orc boys will beat the absolute shit out of them. No real problems whatsoever. Well, if they're just going to sit there, I'm going to move the handgunners up closer to the front. And I'll move them up as well. I'll use this to kind of protect my flanks. And put the halberdiers up there. You can remain as a reserve. So, Orc boys, for example, will absolutely annihilate them with very little issues indeed. They'll beat them up and they'll lose maybe 20, 30 men, and they'll pretty much wipe out the unit of state troops, so you don't want them to be fighting that stuff. But that's really only when they're vet 0. Once you get some serious veterancy into your state troops, oh hello, you want to give me more spearmen? I'll happily take that. Then they become extremely competent, primarily because of their melee defense skills goes up, which the shielded spearmen have a really, really good one, plus a decent amount of armor as well. I'm not entirely sure which one is better, spearmen with shields or swordsmen with shields. They're both pretty damn good. The swordsmen have a little bit more in the way of offense, while the spearmen have a little bit more in the way of defense. Now, in most cases, an Empire army should be primarily defensive when it comes to its infantry, simply because you're going to want to do most of your damage with ranged units, with artillery, with gunners, crossbowmen, and with cavalry. So the front line really is just more of a holding force rather than a grinding force, and they still haven't quite seemed to realize what I'm doing to them. Okay, well, they ate... Oh, fuck it. We're just gonna engage them the good old-fashioned way, then. This isn't like... This is a strange bug to me, because this happens so rarely, relatively speaking. The AI is usually very quick on advancing towards me whenever I send out a force to, you know, kind of tickle them a bit and make sure they attack me to get into a better position, etc. But every now and then it does this and just kind of sits there for some reason. I'm not entirely sure why. I haven't really been able to replicate it, which is why I'm not sure if it's a bug or if it's just some kind of, you know, minor AI glitch. Like, it doesn't seem to be, you know, consistent with a map or a particular army setup. Although it does happen fairly often in this particular battle, I've noticed. Come on. Surely you've noticed me at this point, right? No? Still? Okay. Right, okay, a little closer then. I don't really want to be charging them since, you know, I have... Well... Actually, you know what, fuck it. Let's just get in there, because they've got their crossbowmen shooting at me now, and the crossbowmen are quite dangerous, so... Let's get in there and do some damage. I don't want them to be firing now, though, because they're going to be hitting my own dudes, so... Let's have them stop that, and, let's get ready to flank around, shall we? Come on, come on. Ew, there you go, good boys. Alright, slow it down for a moment. They should be able to beat those up nice and easy like. That's 3 units, so I'm going to have to throw the spearmen in here, all due likelihood. I'll have them deal with these, and that, and the. Okay, and I've got a slight outnumbering here, which I can deal with Franz, and I'll throw him in the middle. And we'll have the Reichsguard take care of this side, along with... Well, I should have had them on the other side, actually, but... minor problem. We can have them help out in the middle. Alright, so... Taking most of the casualties here, probably because there's 2 of the units, so let's get them in there. The Reichsguard will first drive off the enemy's crossbowmen in the meantime. I'll set them up on these guys, and I'll throw the crossbowmen in here, primarily just to take the pressure off the swordsmen a little bit. Right. Point your boomsticks in the general direction of the enemy and let rip. I'm not in a perfect position here, but it's good enough, everything considered. Halberdiers are losing to the swordsmen so far, which they have a tendency to do. again, if you vet them, they get a lot more useful, to the point where, in fact, you know, against just stuff like orc boys, they'll never be as good as swordsmen or shielded spearmen, in my personal experience at least. But fighting the undead, halberdiers are incredibly good, because the skeleton spearmen, etc., are not so good that they'll outfight them easily. Which in turn means that you can use their higher damage output to your advantage. Right, they should have that fight pretty nice and safe now, so go and help out the swordsman instead. They haven't thrown in their general for some reason. AI is being unusually stupid today for some reason or another. I'll take it. I mean, it's always nice to get a nice and easy start to the campaign, certainly. Right, I don't need to chase them down, so I'll just get ready to throw them into the rear of the enemy. But yes, halberdiers against undead are really, really good. It's also simply because the undead tend to have a fair bit of, you know, bigger stuff like the Vargolfs and the Vargeists and all that kind of nonsense, you know? And a solid line of halberdiers will deal very, very well with these large units indeed. Because they don't give a shit about their armor. They don't perform as well against masked graveguards, but even then they do pretty well. And to be honest, against masked graveguard, you really don't want to be using just swordsmen either, you know? They'll slow them down, but they'll usually lose, unless you've got some serious veterancy on them. In which case they can win, but yeah, it's not something I'd bet a whole lot of money on. Alright, well, he's still standing there, so I'll take this opportunity to shoot him a bit, I think. Because why the bloody hell not? Right, now the cavalry's in the way, so just turn the other way, fire at will, and just, you know, kill off some enemies as they present themselves. And I can send my generals after that, since there's not a whole lot else I need to deal with at the moment. The enemy has pretty much decided that this is a very, very bad day and are running for their lives. And there we go. Nice and simple. And I don't need to chase them down. Besides just the obvious gameplay, of course. Ah, there we are, militiamen. This is one of the best drops you can get early for the Empire, because this is 1+ experience, which along with Karl Franz means you have bronze 3 units, you know, which is really, really good. However, here's the clue. You have a research here, which is State Troop Sergeants, which is +2, which means that with the militiamen, with this and Karl Franz, you're recruiting Silver 2 troops right off the bat. And if you can get a, I think it's the captain, I believe, the captain, in there as well, you can actually recruit Gold 1 units, which is pretty dang good. Right, so there's actually another barrack in Helmgart. Well, I don't need one there, obviously, because I've already got quite a few of those, so let's just get some more swordsmen. And let's see what the orcs do, except we need to spend a point first. Now, this point is always kind of useless, because Reassuring Presence, not particularly good. Fervent, you know, it's okay, but not particularly good. Iron Discipline, again, okay, but not particularly good. So I just usually pop it into Fervent. It'll be useful later against the vampire count, but it's kind of a dead point. Right then, orcs, what are you going to do? You're going to underway, right? Granted, there is no actual underways in that particular part of the Warhammer world, because, you see, the dwarves inhabited most of this area, or actually, this area was mostly inhabited by the High Elves, with the dwarves having more like this area around here. Because it's a little bit more hilly. They were known as the Hill Dwarves, and even here there was no underway. The underway is purely a World Edge Mountains thing. There's no underway here. There's absolutely none, so But again, you could kind of argue that they're not really using the underway, they're going through the forest, which the orcs should be able to do. They really should, because there's plenty of tribes of goblins, etc. that inhabit these woods, so you could make that argument, but it's not entirely correct, if you get my drift. Okay, so their movement rate is round about here. Okay, so if I move here, I should be safe, but I have had the AI cheat on their movement rate quite a lot of times previously, so you can never be entirely sure. Right, and let's get a stable here. So I need to try and chase these fuckers down, because that's kind of important, but I also want to deal with Eilhart as fast as possible, so what I'm going to do is I'm not going to move them there, because that would be silly. I'm going to move them over here, because there's no way they reach Grunberg, right? I can't imagine a way they could reach Grunberg from here. Although, again, that's not a guarantee of anything. How's the garrison looking like? Half strength? If I force march... it's a moot point. I can't reach it anyway, so what I'll do is I'll march over here, and I'll get 3 units of state troopers, and there should not be any way they can reach Helmgart.
Summon the Elector Counts.
Actually, I'm not entirely sure that's the truth. They might be able to reach Helmgart.
Yes, my lord. Ready.
Let's chill for maybe... It doesn't look like they can reach it, but that doesn't always matter. Screw it. I'll take the risk just to finish off the Separatists nice and early, before they start recruiting another 2 or 3 units, etc. So I'll do that. Althoff, they can't take Althoff. It's far too heavily garrisoned, so that's not a problem. Eilhart, I'm going to keep the fields there for the moment. And Helmgart, I'm not going to build anything just yet, because I'm not entirely sure how far the orcs are going to travel. So let's get off with, first and foremost, income. Just growth and income is fantastic. And we will get Quartermaster, because Quartermaster is great. Right, let's see if I've underestimated their movement speed. There's the Skull Takers, not too worried about them, and no, they didn't move for anything.
Grows, my lord. News of your conquests spreads far and wide.
Right, okay, so
Developing power is noted by even the most distant of kings.
now I'm gonna have to try and chase these fuckers down, which is not particularly simple. I'm also almost certainly gonna have a rebellion on my hands eventually. Okay, Helmgart, you are gonna build a tap room, which is an incredibly good building. They're gonna enter Grunberg, just to make sure I've got that under wraps, and then I can try and just bunch them in. Right, I also want to upgrade Helmgart. Usually you just want to upgrade the main city, but with the Empire I like upgrading Helmgart and Grunberg first. Helmgart, because I want a level 2 bastion here, which is essentially just a defense against Bretonnia. And Grunberg, because of course I want tier 3 barracks. Right, Wiesenland loves me, which is amazing. Stirland likes me, Telebicland likes me, Middenland does not, Marienburg does not. Bastogne is not my biggest fan either. No. I've never been able to get a non-aggression pact with those little fucks, so I would be somewhat surprised if I started now. Trade agreements would be really nice though, because it's a little bit extra money. Now, an agreement with Stirland is going to piss off Wiesenland a bit. So, they like Telebicland. Aversion? Really? That's interesting. Trespassing. Well, at least that I can understand.
Greetings on behalf of the Empire. Now what brings you here?
Right. There. And I will also try for non-aggression pact. Lovely. And for Stirland...
Approach and make your offer.
Perfect. Lots and lots and lots of lovely trade. I can't reach Kanak no Kanak Ziflin because the neck snappers are still around, which is also something I'm going to have to deal with. There's currently nothing in Kanak Asgaras occupied by the Greenskin, so I wouldn't mind having a go at that either. That would be quite useful. I'm halfway tempted to get another Lord, but both of them are kinda bad, so... Right, Orkies, how are we gonna deal with you little fucks then? Well, first and foremost, we need to know where you're headed. You're gonna head for... Really? That's an interesting decision. Right, well, it's, the balance of power tells me I'm going to lose. Now, Orc boys are a lot better than just these guys, but I think I've got enough infantry to just overwhelm them, so let's try it. I do outnumber the Orc boys 2-1, which is a pretty good statistic, no questions. So 1, 2, 3, 4. 7 against their 4. These are full strength. They've got 2 Goblin Archers and a Doom Diver. So if I send one of these each after the Goblin Archers, they should be able to defeat them. Might be enough with one, but they're probably going to take a buttload of damage when they're closing on them, so probably we want to be a little careful about that. We want to deploy everything in the forest, because that will encourage the little idiots to come nice and close. The hero is actually going to be the most annoying thing, because the Empire Captain is not going to beat an Orc hero in close combat. Not anytime soon, so I'm going to throw the Captain into just the Orc boys. He's going to deal as much damage as possible, and I'm just going to hope that I can rout enough of their army so that I can just swamp the hero. That's going to be the basics of the idea here. Okay, the Goblin Archers are coming a lot closer. Pause it for a moment there and start these moving and walking. So maybe I can sneak up on the little buggers. They'll spot me. There they are. Right, now they're gonna run away. Yeah, I'm not gonna catch them, so fuck it. Fuck it, fuck it, fuck it. Go back, stop, and go back into being hidden. Some archers would have been useful here, no questions. Especially to take out the Doom Divers, because the enemy AI will, as is quite common with Total War AI, it will happily fire into its own ranks, as long as it feels like it'll be able to do more damage to you. Right. I'll probably try and just sweep these around the side, get some surrounds on them, get the maximum amount of my guys into combat with them. The Orc boys are heading in a somewhat uncomfortable direction, as now I'm going to have to engage the Doom Diver, which I obviously will, because, you know, it's a Doom Diver. Okay. And actually, I'll have you go around. I'll throw you in the front. And I'll throw you in there as well. And these troops will, for the moment, be reserves. And you go in there, you go around the side. Lovely. So, let's get one of them on the Goblin Archers over there. This guy will go on the Goblin Archers over there. Because you have to tie them down. They might just be Goblin Archers, but you would be very, very surprised at how much damage they will do. How quickly they will do that damage as well. So they have to be dealt with. Okay, so he's fully engaged there. Let's get around the side there, and let's get him down on the flank there. Right, so they'll chase them around. Actually, I can maybe catch these. Okay, so Yes, I'll be able to catch that unit, which is nice. I'll throw those in there, and those will help out on the other side. And these units are just going to be chasing that one for a very, very long time indeed. Okay, right, I can probably peel off this unit. Now that they've caught them, I don't have to worry about the goblin archers doing a ton of damage to them, which means I should be fine just leaving them to the smaller units. Right. So far, so good. And that's about it for the fancy maneuvering, as now it's just a good old-fashioned grindy match with orcs versus men. God, I miss the match combat animation so much. Oh, there we go. That's that flank dealt with. Right, there's just 10 of them left, so no real point in pursuing them. Warhammer, Mac Warhammer, is doing his job, beating up all kinds of green. Unfortunately, their hero is doing much the same, although he has lost more hit points than Warhammer, so that at least is good news. He's a strong little bastard, considering he can send several orcs flying with that tiny sword. It's quite impressive, no questions. Boom, bang, smack, smash, smush, punch. Right. Victory is in our grasp. Yes, yes it is. Oh, they actually came back for more, did they? Well, you know, that's fine. If I can kill a couple more of them and just make sure they don't rally, that'll be fine. I don't have to worry about these guys. Let's see over here. Well, I'll catch them eventually. Maybe. And, oh hello, they've routed. Perfect. Right, 50 of you should be able to deal with them. You can just chase those down, and you'll come over here and help. There's what? 33 of them. Yeah, if you could knock down those numbers a bit, I'd be very, very appreciative. Right, okay. You get out of there, because you're one of the created units, so I don't want to waste you for nothing. And Warhammer Mac Warhammer should now be able to deal with Ugruk Kracktooth here. Oh, yeah, he's decided to fuck off. Right, let's try and run him down if at all possible. There we are, and let's see if we can kill him, because that would be very, very nice if we could, and I think we can probably pull it off. He hasn't got a whole lot of hit points. Come on, just give him a couple more nice bashes to the rear end. You know, up through the back door and all that. Almost there. I'd probably be better off if I told these guys to... There we go. Beautiful. So, you can see here what I mean. Like, this unit of orc boys killed 113 state troopers. The warboss killed 142 by himself, so... Mac Warhammer, in contrary, killed 57. This is why you really need that veterancy, because, yeah... Pardon orcs? Are you fucking shitting me? No, 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 no. You kill orcs, you don't pardon them, so there you go. Stabby, stabby. Right, so a few of them did survive, which is a tiny bit annoying, but, you know, it's... Well, frankly, at this point, it's free experience points, so, you know. Stabby, stabby.
Pick up the pace.
Magic resistance, not particularly useful, but, you know, I will take it.
Bring me to my men.
And now, I am actually going to hope that the enemy revolts. Well, enemy. That I revolt, because I want them to.
Prince and Emperor.
So that's 5. Let's give him 6, 7, 8. There we go. That's a solid starting stack. And tier 2, if you please. And also, we need the cattle pastures. Grunberg you want tier 3 because cattle pastures are amazing, but even more so, Warhorse Breed is stable. +2 unit experience for Empire Knights and Reichsguard. Very good indeed. So pastures, which increases growth, and you can get a lot of growth. And I'm going to upgrade Eilhart as well, because that's farm level 2, and you can get like 220 plus growth with the Empire, which is pretty nice. Right, so I want to have a second recruiter. So this guy is also going to go for headhunter. So I got 2 guys recruiting, and everyone else is going to be concentrating on doing war stuff. Because you don't want good old Franz doing all of the recruiting, because, you know, you want to have him actually be fighting occasionally as well, you know. Just occasionally. By the way, they could potentially reach Eilhart, which is not something I'm a massive fan of. Let's get you over there and protect Eilhart, shall we? I would rather they didn't burn that to the ground if at all possible, and pastures are good. Pastures are wonderful. Unfortunately, that brought me back to 0. Damn it. Hell. That was unfortunate. I kind of hoped they would actually revolt here, because it would have been another level, and I think I only need 1 more. I'll probably be able to get it for the Battle of Bloodpine Woods, in that fact, actually. In fact, before we wrap up, let's do the Battle of Bloodpine Woods.
Come, men. It seems Todbringer sends his midden wolves across the Reich to test our mettle. He seems to think that since my father's death, Reikland is weak, and we cower under our beds waiting for these Ulrich worshippers to save us from our woes. I say we Reiklanders are more than capable of defending ourselves. I say we show Todbringer's mongrels that Reiklander blood flows through our veins. We face the trespassers deep in the Bloodpines. Keep your wits, lads, for there is more than Ulrich's dogs in there. My father had to send the Reichsguard in to purge these woods of forest goblin filth more than once during his reign. Yet that is not what we face today. No! Today we send the Elector Count of Middenland a message that it is the House of Franz that protects the borders of Reikland!
Yay! Very inspirational there, Karl. Now, let us cowardly ambush the people that are sending help to the poor rebels that are fighting desperately for their freedom from Karl Franz, the Emperor of Terror. But hey, freedom is severely overrated as far as I am concerned, as long as, you know, it's other people's freedom, in which case it is massively overrated. Alright, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5... 5 of them, so we'll match up evenly against them after giving them a good old-fashioned volley. And you 3 will deal with the cannons, because you kind of have to deal with the cannons, because otherwise they tend to hurt a lot. So, yeah. You go around the flank, and the Reichsguard go around the further flank, and Franz go down the bloody middle, because that is what Franz does. By the way, did I mess up that one? Yes, I did. Okay, you guys then, go over there. There you are, much better. Okay, so both of you target that unit. And... oh, actually, wait. Let's do that first, because these things will happily blast away even into friendly troops, as we have seen previously. So, there we are, much better. Now, with the threat of imminent exploding destruction alleviated for the time being, action! There we are. Now, it's back to the hacky slashy. Franz, go there. You go there. And you two, hold fire. And get into some marching formations, if you please. I know that making them get into marching formation doesn't increase their actual movement speed, but I'm too much of a fan of the 18th century style of warfare and stuff to not make them do that every time. I really hope the next historical Total War has something to do with that general area. I mean, I wouldn't mind the 1900s, like the Victorian area, for example, would be pretty nice indeed. Honestly, though, I kinda want to see Empire 2, or, well, honestly, I want to see Napoleon 2 rather than Empire 2, because Empire was based in a period of human history that was a little bit less exciting when it comes to unit variety, and I'm one of those that I love unit variety. For me, unit variety is what keeps me playing a Total War game, just experimenting with different compositions, different tactics, etc. That's one of my primary joys, and the Imperial era, it is somewhat limiting in that particular field, although nowhere near as limiting as Empire Total War could make you believe, because Empire Total War was a lazy game, where every single nation had the exact same units. Like, you know, it wasn't that bad, you know? But it's not massively far from it, because they did all pretty much use variations of the same tactics, although there were certainly some fairly considerable variations of those tactics a lot of the time. For example, cavalry tactics were quite different. One school of thought, for example, dictated that cavalry forces should be armed with small arms, pistols, the likes, and they should charge into combat, discharging their pistols right before they hit the enemy lines. And then they should bring up the melee weapons and start, you know, swinging good and proper like in a more normal way. This proved to be a fairly effective, you know, way of doing things for quite a while, but it was eventually proved by the Duke of Marlborough, I think, in a battle, that it wasn't as effective as just charging at your enemies, screaming your lungs out, with good old-fashioned swords, you know? And the primary reason for that, obviously, was not because swords were more effective than pistols. In fact, generally speaking, the pistols would do more damage to the enemy, but it was very fleeting damage, you know? If the guys around you get killed by pistols, or in a charge, where you're easily doing, you know, 40 kilometers odd, probably, on a horse back then, well, you know, it was carrying a bit of a weight, so let's be pessimistic and say 20 kilometers, you know? It's still fairly fast by any conventional means. Especially by that time standard, it was probably considered to be pretty damn fast. And at that kind of speed, you have very little time to react to one of your allies getting shot by a pistol, you know? That's a very brief event. In fact, in most of the time, you're probably not even gonna notice the fact that he just got shot. Hello there, Pistoliers. I'm not convinced by your choice of target there. Pistoliers are terrible units, by the way. Which means that it had a very small effect on the unit's morale, you know? Because as I mentioned, in most cases, the guy whose morale you're trying to break is unlikely to even have noticed that the unit has taken any casualties, which obviously makes it a hell of a lot easier for said unit to resist the moral shock, because, you know, as far as he's concerned, the unit is pretty much at full strength, and that's all of the pistoliers dead. Pathetic units. A full unit of cavalry, however, their swords drawn, glinting in the daylight, screaming as they're just hurling towards you at a massive speed, and you don't have a weapon to hand, you know? You fired off your volley of pistols, but you haven't seen any real effect of it. That has a far larger psychological effect than a scattered volley of pistol fire. And as such, the unit were far more likely to break. Because here's the thing. In a lot of Hollywood movies, and, you know, just movies in general, you will see battles be these long, drawn-out engagements of units beating each other with swords and that kind of stuff, you know. Very dramatic and stuff. It looks really cool, don't get me wrong, it looks awesome. Hello there, Franz. Franz just got his ass stomped into the absolute dirt, and yeah, that was pretty much instant. Right, so that works as a pretty good demonstration of why you should not leave Franz alone for extended periods of times, because he dies fast. But yes, as I was saying, they're very flashy battles, but throughout most of cavalry warfare's history, cavalry very rarely actually impacted upon the enemy. The primary goal of a cavalry charge... Hello, did I just get a battle wizard? Intelligence is pretty bad good.
Let us move.
The primary idea of a charge was to break the enemy, rather than to kill him, so... And that's usually what happens, so it's going to be 4 turns until I can recruit him again, which is unfortunate.
Sigeman.
Very, very unfortunate. Very, very sad.
What does the Emperor bid?
But I have time. I actually have plenty of time. Speaking of that, Canuck Norn.
My throng stands ready.
Could I? No? Okay. I'm gonna have to worry a bit about the dwarf phase then, which is unfortunate. Backstabbing, traitorous little furry fuckers. Until next time though, I have been Arch. Thank you very much for watching, and I do hope to see you all again soon. Have a good day.